Okay. Give us just another moment as we're having some fun. Rabbi Schwartz is surprising us and wants to join us, and will be joining us on computer, on screen, as we also get our live stream going as well, so that people can join us. You don't know which key it is? Come on. This one or this one, depending on if it's the gold lock. Gold lock, it's this one. If it's the silver lock, it's that one. I can get it. Keep talking amongst yourselves for a moment.
Well,
maybe.
Well, we'll see if this works now. Oh, I got to start the meeting now. Launching the meeting. So,
and then I'll trade places with you.
Trade seats?
No, this.
Where? We'll see if he comes on now. We have no idea what's going to happen. A well-oiled machine, but let's start with our conversation at least and see. I'll text him too. Our thought was that something that's on our mind right now and is relevant for all of us is, in a sense, what's the future of synagogue life, and how does a synagogue succeed when our world's changed? Obviously things changed 2.5 years ago with the pandemic when none of us were coming to services. And in that time, today, we had 330 people attending services in person here. And what's that? No, 390 was at the school. What's that? That's it. That's right. So, nonetheless, compared to 700, let's say, in 2019. And what does that mean? And the other reality is, over the years, the numbers have gone down at an attendance. Am I right? Oh, I was opposite. Temple at 390, the school at 330. The school had more than 330, I count that. It was at least 360. Right? You counted with me, Judy. And so, but nonetheless, look, we had 1,200 one year at Kol Nidre, I think 15 years ago. Now, that may have been a Friday night Kol Nidre or a Sunday night Kol Nidre, which always makes it easier for some. And our morning services have shrunk intentionally because we started the youth service over at off-site, whether it was at the Corners or at West Bloomfield High School, and different than, what's he saying? Hold on. Let me in. Oh, you got to let him in. You said you were watching that, Rabbi?
Melanie is supposed to be watching.
Wait, I bet you he's going to berate us when he first get in. Just be honest. Let's just see what happens. So let's hope he's dressed too. He was davening on the computer this morning. So, so we intentionally changed the format of our morning services, right? We know we did that differently, and it made things easier here with more space. But something changed, right? The pandemic changed it, and we all know people who are home right now, some because they're not comfortable being in a crowd, but a lot who are really comfortable being home and just thought, I can sit at home and relax and enjoy services and get that feeling. And so what does that mean for the future, right? I mean, if that's the trajectory where we're moving, what's Temple going to be in 10 years? If every year it gets a little smaller. I mean, will we get back to where we were before the pandemic? And how important is that, right? I'm not just saying, well, I want to keep myself in business and have a job. I want to keep him in business so he has a job. So, but how do we do that in this changing world? And how do we make that possible? And so that was a conversation we were thinking would be important for us to have, and to get your opinions on it too. Look, you're all here. So on some level, we're preaching to the choir, right? You all showed up this morning and have made this your priority today. But who do you know that's not here? And why are they not here? And how important is that? Rabbi talked about in his sermon the idea of a lot of things that draw people away from connecting, and how do we create that sense of pride and ownership of our faith that makes a congregation valued and worthwhile. There are a lot of non-congregations that are bubbling up in our country, right? In San Francisco, one of the most well-attended high holiday services is not at a synagogue, it's at the Kitchen. The Kitchen was a spin-off that came from Rodav Sholom, one of the rabbis there, and it was sort of their offshoot for unaffiliated, but a la carte kind of membership. You can so where do Jews gather to talk, right? In the Kitchen. So that's what they call it. And they have services, and they rent, one of the big buildings on the warehouses on the wharf, Fisherman's Wharf, in San Francisco, and they, get a big crowd there. And they have good rabbis who service that. And for a certain dollar amount, you can buy the bar mitzvah package in the Kitchen. And your child gets, tutored and prepared, and you get, in Chicago, they have something called Mishkan, which is the tent, right? Or the sanctuary, and it's a non-synagogue gathering. We in our community have the Well, and to the Well's credit, and the Well was started by Temple Israel. They've hired the rabbis who have been the executive directors of it, and but they've said that it's really an organization for young adults, those 40 and younger, to connect Jewishly, but not to be doing services. So they have the Well has no high holiday services. They did a Tashlich thing last weekend, but no high holiday services. Rabbi Jeff was teaching at Temple Israel right now. He was and offered to come do a teaching here, but the timing just didn't work out because it overlapped with our free moments when he's at Temple Israel. So those are things, and there are rabbis, even in our community, who are not pulpit rabbis, but you can hire them for your kid's bar mitzvah or for your wedding or whatever. You don't have to belong to a synagogue. So if people are moving in that direction, what does that mean for us? Is that something we should be concerned about? And why is that not us? So that's my opening statement. And I have answers and stuff, but I'll let Rabbi share too. And Rabbi.
Is he on?
Is he on?
Can you guys hear me?
Turn this all the way up.
I just got to figure out where Try now.
Daniel?
I'm here.
A voice from on high speaks to me. Just tell me I'm okay and you love me. Yeah. Can you hear us?
I'm not telling him anything.
No. Rabbi, which rabbi goes next?
So I'll start in a sense and turn to Rabbi Schwartz. The elder.
I'm getting every other word. I'm not getting. I can't hear what's going on right now.
We're listening to you. Well, so we'll catch him up in a moment. You'll send him a message. But for me, yes, it is something that we should be concerned about. And part of it for us as a congregation is we're looking at things as we offer something that's a little bit different from the concierge rabbi experience, or from the rabbis for hire experience, or from places like Mishkan and the Kitchen, where it is an a la carte opportunity for people. They don't call it membership when you join one of those organizations. And I think that for some, and it depends on the generation that you're in, some people are looking to be a member of something, and some people are not. And the question is, how do we engage those people that are not looking for membership, but are looking for those opportunities, that are looking for the communal opportunities, that see Judaism as a communal religion, but don't want to be part of a formal Jewish community. And I think that a good model for us at times in the distant future maybe is looking at some of the Chavarah groups that have formed that meet inside synagogues. That there are, in the Orthodox community, or Beth Shalom here in our community in Huntington Woods Oak Park, they had an Orthodox minyan that was meeting there as their Shabbat services that were going on. Kolami down the street had B'nai Israel that was meeting there, that was supporting their mission and their endeavors, but allowed this minyan to be able to meet, to form. In Oak Park, Rabbi Asher Lopatin was the one that was, and is still the one that's leading the community, but it supported the synagogue's mission as they were going through things by providing rental space for them so that that group could be part of a community as well. And I imagine that, what will we be able to offer? There will be people that are looking for communal opportunities. For us, it's about relationships. I don't want to be the rabbi for hire. I'm not interested in having somebody come here just for a bar mitzvah or for a wedding and say, we want you for the wedding, but never want to have a relationship with you again. For people that are interested in that, there are rabbis that are out there and communities that are welcome to that and open to that. For us, and this is part of one of the reasons that I love Shir Shalom and one of the reasons that I came here, is that it was about relationships, that we build relationships, that we'll take a moment in a second, because we didn't do that at the beginning, for you to turn and meet the people that are next to you as well sometime during our time here, because it's about the community that we're a part of. And that it's always been about that we know the people who are here, and for those that we haven't had the opportunity to meet, we want to get to know them as well. That's, to me, what a synagogue is. It's a Beit Knesset, a house of gathering. And that if it's going to continue to be that, if we have some sort of structure, whether it's here or even if there are places where a meeting that we call a Beit Knesset, a house of gathering, that we need a place to be able to draw the community together. And I think that even with a pandemic, people were looking for those opportunities. That for us, thanks to our COVID task force made up of a number of medical professionals and some other members of our community, we looked at things early on and tried to figure out, how can we get together still? Are there ways? And they said that you can do things outside, that the way that things look with the pandemic, as long as you're outside, you should be okay. So we took the extra cautions. We were masked outdoors, creating distance, but we were the only synagogue in town that ran a religious school on a weekly basis. And for those of you who were part of graduation last year, and Allison, our president, talked about her daughter's experience in her presidential address, if you were able to see that, but also in one of her columns, just the opportunity for our kids to be able to be together and what they were yearning for that they didn't have in their public schools, that this was the only place that they were able to be together for a number of months, to see other people, to see other high school students. And we know it was the same for adults, and tried to have opportunities as we were outdoors and had an oneg here in the middle of winter and put up some heaters and the campfires and other things, that people didn't want to leave. And I think that people still yearn for that communal experience. Sometimes they don't realize it, but when they fall into it, they really enjoy it. And I think that's one of the reasons that we continue to fulfill the same type of mission that we have and the way that we're doing it, but also open up to other opportunities and not be blind to what's happening in our world.
Rabbi, can you hear us? Rabbi Schwartz?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
We can. Do you want to share some thoughts as we've opened this discussion up?
Yeah. Are we talking about the future of the Jewish community or the future of the synagogue, or both?
Both.
He started off with the synagogue, so.
But yes, the future of our faith as well.
Well, the future of our faith is dependent upon, number one, how many people we have left as far as a community is concerned. We are birthing -2 demographically, and therefore we are losing market share. Whereas the Orthodox community is growing leaps and bounds. They are +6. We are losing because of assimilation, and in order to fight that, we need to draft more people. That means if we go back to the Babylonian experience, for example, we go back to the time period where Ezra and Nehemiah knew that they were losing people, and therefore they started to get people to intermarry. And we have to be far more productive in that department, believe it or not, to try to create love between people who are of our faith and other faiths, and attempt to make them feel welcome, not push them away. The third thing I would say is that as far as Jewish communal life is concerned, that we really have to start marketing ourselves much better than we have. It's easy to say, things are terrible. It's much harder to say a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. We have to reformulate who we are and to market ourselves better. And we are not doing that. Our federation is not doing that. Our national organizations are certainly not doing that. And that's not a criticism, that's just a statement of fact. So that's Jewish communal life. We have to grow ourselves. On the other hand, the synagogue is not dead. It's just gotta reorient themselves. What's dead is the local synagogue. The synagogue that says, "You come to me." The synagogue that says, we're a service station. That's what we do. Rabbis that are gunslingers for hire are fine. If you can't compete with the rabbis who are gunslingers, then you might as well fold up your tent and move. To say fair on them, they're just trying to make a living. And there are people who like country club weddings, and country club bar mitzvahs, and that's what they're for. The Chavurah concept, great concept. We should be doing it, and we should have done it for years. But somebody has to help Chavurot. You can't just have poof Chavurot. You've got to create somebody whose prime directive and prime purpose in life is to establish small communities within your larger community. The Torah class should be a Chavurah. It shouldn't just be a Torah class. A choir, our choir, is a Chavurah. There's no question that is a Chavurah. They care about each other. They love bomb each other. And that is what they should be. But somebody has to be in charge of them. And somebody has to give them ideas and give them love and give Chavurot a raison d'etre.
There's a synagogue in Miami that whenever Dan Nichols is in town, he travels the globe to different synagogues, to different camps, does programming and stuff. And so we always sit with him for a few hours and pick his brain. What has he seen out there that we might not have seen or don't know of? There's one synagogue who has the director of membership engagement is one of their staff titles. A gentleman who's my age, and his desk is in the lobby when you walk in. And he meets every single person. He knows every single person in the synagogue, and he connects people to people. And I love that model. I mean, in a sense, it's what Rabbi and me are always trying to do, but there's only so many hours in a day, and so we're not always able to do what we want to. But that creates those chavarot that are so good and so important. For us, it's the connections. And I'm bombarded now with weddings. I have a wedding every single weekend. I have through the entire summer, except when I was in Israel, and then all the way up. I didn't have one the weekend of Rosh Hashanah, and the next weekend I don't is in November at some point, the week before Thanksgiving. And why? It's because of relationships. It's connections. We occasionally do non-member weddings. Someone who's going to we give them membership, they get engaged in temple and connected, and that's our hope and why we do it. But more often than not, these are kids who, we've known their whole life. I mean, I'm about to have my hat trick in next October, I think. Someone who I named, bat mitzvahed, and now I get to do her wedding, I hope. So I don't know if it's a hat trick or a triple crown, which one it is at that point. But the excitement of that because of the relationships, the connections, and what that means. How do you continue that when there are less new people coming in? It's interesting, as I've talked about the number of people coming to services universally, right? Not just our services, but across the globe, people attend Reform and conservative synagogues. At the same time, our membership has grown, right? So, you can look at when our membership was 600 families, and we had 1,000 here for Kol Nidre. Right? So what does that show you, and what is the purpose of being a part of a temple? And I'd argue, and I answer that part of it is the success of our youth programming, of our religious school, of our connections with our kids and things like that. But what about now my generation who are empty nesters? How do we keep people connected? And what does that mean? And what's the value of our faith? And so I'm talking about both the future of our Judaism as a faith and the future of places like us. There will be synagogues that close, there's no doubt. In the next decade, in our community in Metro Detroit, synagogues will be closing. Shir Shalom will not. We have success, but we have to also figure out what's going to take us to that next level, right? To make that possible, because if not, in 30 years, it will be different.
I also think for us, it's about redefining what we see as membership and interactions with people. Terry Ellison Hollander is the only one so far of the 65 people who are watching on the screen right now that has commented. So it means there's 64 other screens out there that we don't know who's there. Hi, Mom and Dad. I know two. But 63 other screens that are out there, and the question is, they're engaging in some way. How many of them are members of Temple, connect to Temple? How many just joined on and are welcome to join us and be a part of the community as well? And it's trying to figure out that most of our programs for years have always been in-person programs. Now trying to figure out how do we engage people online. And Gary Schumann, our programming vice president of Temple, he'll tell you one of his favorite programs is Trivia Night. As for the Grant girls that are up here, and the Ziegelmans, a number of people are here, and it's an all online program that we offer. And we started that during the pandemic, and it was a way of connecting people, and people who had never met before here at Temple that were members who have now connected, and now when they see each other when they're here, have this wonderful relationship because they connected online. And for us, it's trying to figure out other opportunities that we can engage people to give people that community online, whether you're here or as some of the players who have joined us are in New York or in other cities around the United States that have been a part of Trivia Night as well. And looking for those opportunities and putting it in that Jewish lens as well, I think is what's going to help us succeed in the future too, or is necessary to be able to succeed.
But what we have to do as a synagogue is to take that Trivia Night experience and stop trivializing it and creating a sense among ourselves that we have to unite them. We have to keep them going. And we plan activities with them and for them. And somebody is accountable to do that. And to make it more than a social experience, but a Jewish experience in some way. I think that's the way to make it work. If we just think it's going to continue just because it is, as a natural outgrowth of Trivia Night, I think that we're sorely mistaken. I think the concept of utilizing the synagogue as the hub of the wheel of a virtual Jewish universe is what is going to have to happen in our lives. It's nice to say we have relationships as rabbis, but it should develop into something more than that. It has to be relationship between people, and that's obvious during this particular time period, at least to me.
Well, I would also, to what you said before about Babylonia and learning from that experience, it's in Babylonia where the concept of a synagogue being a Beit Midrash, a Beit Knesset, and a Beit Tefillah was developed. And we have to be able to do all three of those well. So a Beit Midrash is a house of study. So it's not just learning for children, it's for all of us to gain knowledge Jewishly here. That Beit Tefillah is spiritual, a house of prayer, and that our spirituality is centered here, and that we are able to create spiritual moments in our lives that we take out of here as well. And a Beit Knesset is a house of gathering. And so that it's community. It's social actions, the idea. And it's not just that we have to be in this physical place. It's using that idea of study, prayer, of study, spiritual, and of gathering of people being together are the essence of who we are and what will keep us alive.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I really have to tell you, Michael, that I think that we should do a daily service, a daily minyan, where we are online every day and encourage 10, a minyan, to join that and to create a community in that, where it could be recorded, it might not be recorded. It's something that we do twice a day, that we create something.
You started with a service a day, now it's twice a day?
You want to be, do you want to be a shul or do you want to be a synagogue?
Yeah. So look, I'm open to any opportunity like that, and to bring people together. I will say, is Amy Weber here right now? So Amy lost her father, was 100 and Zoli was 100.
Over 100.
Over 100. Holocaust survivor. Zoli was an amazing man, a religious Jew, lost his entire family, all his siblings, parents in the Holocaust, and would go to Minyan every day. And when the pandemic happened, he would still go to Minyan every day at B'nai Moshe online. And when he died, everyone had stories about Zoli because of the online Minyan. Because what he decided to do when it was online at 5 o'clock Minyan is he'd make his martini every night, and he would even lead the Minyan sometimes. But he always had his martini. How do you make it to 104? Minyan a day with a martini. Game on. I thought it was awesome. So, but everyone knew that. Everyone knew this was, and you saw how this small group, but what that Minyan did, and how meaningful it was for others to have Zoli there too. Some of you had thoughts. So, Joe first.
Explore them and not necessarily
So for those that are online or couldn't hear, there were two things. Daniel, you'll appreciate, it was Joe Firestone that was commenting and giving you praise for the comment about Chavarah groups and the idea of, one, the benefit of them. It was something that in Synagogue 2000 was discussed, but the
You
challenge...
mean, wait a second. Joe Firestone agreed with me?
Yes.
He praised you.
And
But
this is a...
But that...
We will celebrate this as a Jewish holy day from this time forward.
But that it needs to be led by somebody to help keep those groups motivated and moving. And then the second comment was the idea of our new prayer books. As we started off each of the services, inviting people to read the other pages that were shaded or the areas that we weren't reading. And the idea of us being together is for communal prayer, but are we taking away from that experience by sending people to other pages? I'll use Rabbi Schwartz for a moment as well, because he always used to say, when you're being chased out of town, grab the baton and lead the parade. And I think that's part of it with our prayer books as well. We know people are going to look at other things. There's a lot of beautiful readings that are in there, and it was actually designed to be able to make it so that people could read them when they weren't engaged with what was going on. And that's the challenge of some of our prayers sometimes, is we read them, or just the experience that we have, or where we find our minds at times, it's not with and ready to be part of communal prayer. That it's not as engaging at times to listen to something that's being read, or to not follow along in Hebrew when you don't know Hebrew. And so to have these other options, I remember as a kid, I'd look at the beginning of the Gates of Repentance and the Gates of Prayer, the blue copy that was in Reformed prayer books as well, in Reformed communities. There were all sorts of readings that went along. And so I'd find myself flipping through there and would never be on the same page or even in the same area of what was going on during the service. But now having them interspersed within those and having poetic readings or contemporary readings that are connected to the same theme, we're still part of communal prayer, and sometimes we stray for a moment into our own private meditation, and other times we're brought back in, especially when there's moments where we're doing something communally, whether it's singing something with cantor in the choir, or as we're doing a responsive reading that brings us back to it. So I think it's kind of in and out of communal prayer, but it's still a communal experience.
One thing I'll add to that is, so Rabbi and me and Brian Fishman are part of sort of, we meet with, what do you want to call it, an advisor, someone who sort of asks us good questions to help us think in a program called EOS, for those who might know. And so we have a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan of what we want. And included in there is a position that's going to be, someone who's is synagogue or membership engagement. That the point of Chavarah not working is that we have to have a staff person who, that's their job to work with our volunteers to make Chavarahs work, right, and help us. That there's only so much we can do, as much as we want to do that. And we fail when we try to do too many things at once, and that's some of our frustration. So we want to build our staff, to grow our staff, to be able to have different positions, like a social worker as well, to engage our people at different times, seniors who are homebound, stuff like that too, rather than just us trying to visit people and missing out on opportunities too. So, back to that.
And I think that that's an excuse rather than a reason. As Rabbi Schwartz said in his sermon today, if we want to do something, we'll find a way. If we don't want to do something, we'll find an excuse. I think the way is to create an internship program to get people in, whether they be social workers who are trying to need some work experience, or that kind of or a psychologist, that kind of a position that will turn into something that's a paid position. But I think that we have to direct that person or that position to create not just that one position be just for Chavarot, one position be just for seniors, and you create these things that a synagogue has to do, because a synagogue is supposed to synergize. that it's supposed to bring together. We've lost that. We've lost that in the attempt to be just a social action synagogue, or just to be a service station synagogue, or just to be the local know-it-all synagogue. We're better than that, and we have to be better than that. Forgive me for being so serious today. I don't know why I am.
Yom Kippur. Cindy, you've been waiting patiently.
Do you want to repeat?
Yeah.
Are you?
I thought you said you would.
Oh.
Sorry. We know. We're.
Who said it, number one? Who's that speaking? Because all I see is a very small hand. And so I don't know who it was. Number two, could you tell me what she said? Michael, Rabbi?
So Cindy Ziegelman was commenting that I'm going to.
Oh, hi, Cindy.
The idea of whether it's been a youth group board, or I'll use others as well, like our sisterhood, men's club, that there are groups that have.
Wait a second. Daniel, you got to get closer to my speaker.
There are different groups that we have a blueprint for being able to engage members of the congregation, and especially for, Cindy was talking about our 21 to 26-year-olds, opportunities for them to be able to engage as well, and that grabbing a group of them and making a committee to be able to engage people, wouldn't that be wonderful? Yes, it would be. And I think the nice thing too, Cindy, is like you've also, in the last 2 weeks, right before Rosh Hashanah, for those of you who haven't seen it, we've got our programming guide that Carly Eisen, who's back here, our marketing director, beautifully put together for us that talks about all sorts of different programs that we're going to be offering during the year. And Cindy came to us with two of the ideas that are in there. One is during Sukkot, having just a fun evening to be able to gather outside in our sukkah and have cornhole and lawn games and a chance to be able to gather together. And another one that's in there is a euchre tournament. And opportunities just to be able to gather, to be that Beit Knesset, to be able to have and build relationships around activities that we're familiar with. We need more volunteers like you, Cindy, is the honest answer. That could be your one moment. as you're doing it, and we're looking for people that are interested in helping out, because we want to raise up those opportunities and to be able to provide more for that, so that we can be more successful in that area.
You know, forgive me for giving you a history lesson, but once upon a time, a long, long time ago, when Shir Shalom first started, when somebody gave an idea, we used to make them chairman of whatever the idea was.
We still do that.
Yes.
And therefore, I think that Rabbi Moskowitz, being the head rabbi and local know-it-all and big shot, of
connection's
Temple
gonna go
Shir
off
Shalom,
soon.
should crown Cindy Ziegelman as the chairman of that commission.
So crowned.
And I vote for it. And all who agree, say amen.
There you go. Debbie.
There is somebody in the front row that I see, and I'm not sure who it is, on my right-hand side. She's wearing a badge. Wait a second.
Melanie.
She is dressed in black.
No.
She must be a board member.
She's dressed in dark blue. Navy.
Dark blue. Well, I can't tell. But the hair is dark as well. And therefore, she must be on the board because she's wearing a badge.
You are correct.
And if that is the case, then she is the sheriff. And she then, because she is present, she has to bring all of these ideas back to the board.
There's a lot of sheriffs in town, because I see a number of badges both in the back and the front.
Yeah, but she's sitting in the front row. Now, I don't know who that is either. Would you tell me who that is?
Well, if you came here more often, you get to meet all the board members. That's Melanie
You know,
West.
I've had my fill of board members.
Yes.
You know, I don't need to meet another board member. I've met all the board members I need to in my life.
Okay, wait.
But,
Let me.
no,
I'm gonna call on someone right now to ask her a question. Debbie Eber is patiently waiting. Yes. Well, it's all about finding ways to connect here. What?
Nothing of what she said, and neither do any of those millions online who are waiting.
So
instead,
Debbie Ebert spoke about the fact that we, in the past, 25 years ago, we asked Debbie to be a part of our education committee. And through that and involvement in Shoresh, she met other people who became good friends. And they said, we should go to services. And they asked other friends, and they came together and became a Chavarah, without calling it a Chavarah, a Shabbat group. But they were all in the similar demographic of their kids' post-bar mitzvah, and it became a meaningful link that they still have today. And the ideas of
is
that.
Dikron there? Do I see him?
Yeah, Dikron's here. He's the
Well, he was part of that, wasn't he, with Debbie?
Still is.
Still is.
And there you go.
So no doubt. I mean, getting people involved in different ways, again, that's preaching to the choir. Those are the people who are here. What about the people who aren't here? And what becomes the future? And that's also generational. That's generational in a sense.
No. I disagree with you. The people who are there become magnets. They
Well,
bring
then we have to
people in.
invest the people who are here to do that. And obviously, because you're more invested in that, that potential is there. But that still isn't the only answer for how do we bring people. Look, when we make Shabbat an experience, not just prayer, and we say, oh, it's, and this is the board member in the front that you were calling out a moment ago. Oh, we make it burgers, beer, and babka Shabbat. What do you know? 100 people come to services. And they enjoy a nice hour service, and they really enjoy the beer and babka and burgers that we have that night. Because it's an experience, and it's social, and you get spiritual. It brings people here. But again, those are people who belong, too. Those people connected already. So it's a way of, I mean, and those are things that programmatically we connect with one another. But
yes, but you have to continue. There has to be a continuum. There has to be somebody somewhere along the line who signs those people up, breaks that group up into other groups, and that's the beauty of it. That's what makes the Chavurot experience an experience. That's what killed it in the 1970s. And the 1960s. As Joe Firestone, I think, said, what kills it is that because it runs its course and dives, it's because they run out of ideas. And somebody has to give them ideas. Somebody has to give them purpose, meaning. If it's just run to make the earth good, there's no meaning.
Unless it's a social action chavurah.
And there you go. Okay, Daniel, you are the chairman of the social action chavurah.
We've got one. We're in good shape.
yes.
It was intentional.
Awesome. Me neither. That's his time. So,
Will you do me a favor, just so we get to know you a little bit more? Will you introduce yourself so everybody knows?
Daniel,
you, Susie.
come closer to the mic. I cannot.
I'm not talking to you. So it was. I just wanted to make sure.
Susie, if it were knitting involved, right, we have better potential. Right. Yes. Right. Daniel, Susie Mitchell mentioned the idea that part of the reason why she came today, she'd never come to this experience, was because the quality of internet of the streaming wasn't good at home. So she couldn't see it well at home, so decided she needed to show up. And that she recommends we don't do as good of a job with the internet and streaming so that more people show up. We tried that last week. Right? So it's an interesting debate, because we had to create that live streaming opportunity 2.5 years ago. And in doing that, we realized, and we've invested in all our cameras are new now at Temple in the past 1.5 years and done a much better job than we were 2.5 years ago. And we're still learning and getting better at it, and teaching class online, doing things like that too. Interesting, certain synagogues have said they won't do it anymore, especially more traditional places. We've embraced it because part of the reason for us is we've realized we're reaching people we never would have reached. People who are homebound, especially, who want to be here, who used to come in person but can't. And the fact that we've made that possible really makes us feel like we're creating something of quality for people. I mean, they show our services at Provisions on Maple Road on the big screen on Friday nights because one of their residents of blessed memory, Sharon Mizell, she was watching it down there, and they put it up there for her. And then when she was not able to leave her room, she'd watch it, and her daughters would come after work on Friday. They'd sit together, and that's beautiful. And they kept putting the service up there. And, maybe we should charge Provisions. But the idea of reaching people we wouldn't have reached means a lot to us. And it's interesting. I saw last night when I wanted to see how the quality of the stream was and everything worked well later on my computer, and I was looking at the comments to see who was there. And most of the people were our people we know, people connected to the temple. There were a few, no idea who they are, who said, I'm so glad you offered this, you made my Kol Nidre possible. I have no idea who this person is, right? And I want to figure out how do you reach this person. One asked, where are you located physically? I'd like to come. I'm really glad I happened upon your service on YouTube. So interesting that these, unintended consequences have occurred for us too. Ideally, we're face-to-face, people-to-people. We want this. This is what works best for us and we've made successful. At the same time, I think we have to do this more, and educationally with our children, we need to do it more in different ways too. We still want to build those relationships, one-on-one and in small groups, but at the same time, when opportunities arise, we should grab them too.
Speaking of learning new things, thanks to John, appreciate that. John suggested that we just pass around a mic instead of repeating the question. So
Testing.
Michael's got the microphone, and we'll...
To Allison Parr.
Hi there. I had a question because I agree with what you're saying, and I wondered to myself, people are feeling so isolated, and yet they're still trying to watch online, and I don't know how to reach people, that's the first step, and I wonder if people could share their thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah, story.
Here comes the mic.
I was talking about your mom. I didn't even see you right there.
I'm right here. Thank you. I'll piggyback, though, on what Susie was saying, and Allison also. And, I see some things sometimes in the bulletin, and there are events, and I'm also an empty nester, but I'm divorced. So I think about coming by myself, and sometimes that's a little intimidating, even to services sometimes. I don't necessarily think, I really don't want to go by myself tonight. So I agree with you. If there was some way to connect people so that, you had the ability to go, and it's always a wonderful job of introduce yourself to the person you're sitting next to, but it still is a different feeling. So if there was some way to connect people, I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Next week?
Hi. I have a couple thoughts, but one, I think more than a membership people connector, you need a community organizer. There's an internship program at U of M Social Work School for the Jewish side. I think that's what Rabbi Shor's saying. That's a great place to start if you can't hire somebody. Or is there a board member who's in charge of volunteers or community organizing? I think I know other temples hire community organizers. So not only bringing people here, connecting people, but bringing Shir Shalom to events. Like like we're gonna have somebody join this walk because we want to, wear our temple shirts and go out to the, walk for leukemia or something. So just having somebody who's in charge of that, if you can't hire somebody, getting a volunteer. And for me, I've been a member since I've been, well, I mean, my family's been here, so we left Bethel, and I think I was like right before my bat mitzvah. And what kept me going was my family's involvement. But then when Rabbi Schwartz, the younger, came, you started doing a lot of like social stuff and doing fun stuff with younger adults. So if we,
Bar nights.
What?
Bar nights.
Well, bar nights, no, not just that. We did like
Game nights, sorry.
game nights. We did growing up Detroit. I think we did like volunteer stuff. We did cleaning up blight. We did murals. I think that for college age kids, for me, I had my friends in college. Some of them were Jewish, some of them weren't. Some of them came to Hillel with me. But my family stayed connected because of you guys, which I think that's the first step. But then, as we said, reaching out to our membership, who's a social work student or a community organizing student, and bring them back and say, maybe we can't hire you right now, but we can give you an internship. So that's my suggestion.
I like that. Going to the Jockler School has potential too. What's that, Rabbi?
Rabbi Moskowitz,
Yes.
Rabbi Schwartz, even with the mic, I'm getting an echo. That means everybody must be out here in the Netherland of the cloud is getting an echo. So I did not hear what anybody since the mic has said. So you're still going to have to repeat, Rabbi Moskowitz.
We were getting barking.
I know you were doing fine, but
Yeah.
and
They-
everybody who speaks can say their names so that I have wonderful memories of where you are and who you are, and a lot of you I still remember. So I want name because I can't really see your faces.
Rabbi,
through this.
only you're getting the feedback because you have a microphone next to Zoom. Everyone else is getting it on YouTube directly, so it's a little bit different in that way. But and the comment was about looking at U of M, the School of Social Work, for intern opportunities and to see how we can get community engagers and organizers to help us with that, which is cool. So, yes.
Who said that?
Laura Hershey.
Laura Hershey.
Hi, Laura. But wait a second.
Yes.
Wait a second. The Mizell girl said something too.
Yes.
Dory did.
She was divorced?
Yes, she did. She was piggybacking on.
I'm catching up on all this news.
Right. Sorry, Dory, I forgot to tell Rabbi Schwartz that one. And she was commenting on Susie Mitchell's comment about the way Temple can be that way to connect people to each other too. And now, Daniel, now Louise Oram is going to share something.
Wait. Not so fast, Louise.
Hi,
First,
Rabbi.
Susie Mitchell said what?
I already told you what she said.
Say it again.
She was commenting the fact that the reason why she's here was because the live streaming wasn't working well at home. And so that motivated her to come in person, but that it gives her...
Let me ask this question. Hold on. Is Steve with her or not?
No, he is not.
Tell him, shame on him.
Susie, I'll let you do that. So, okay, can we go...
Wait.
Rabbi, you have to listen now.
Allison Parr also had something to say, and it was this long statement, and I want to know what that is. So tell me.
She was agreeing with Susie's and Dory's comments about what we can do as a congregation as well, and connecting and making that more possible.
Here's the mic.
Right. If people are feeling isolated, how can we deal with people's feeling of isolation as well? So
Bring them in.
right.
How to bring them in.
Bring them in. In other words, for example, people who are divorced hate going as a single. They hate it. And somebody has to call them up and say, you're part of our family. Come with us. And sit with them and be with them. People who are alone in a situation of a shut-in need somebody to call them other than on Shabbos. Need somebody to encourage them because it's so easy to be alone. And it's so hard to connect, and you don't want to be a burden, and you don't want to be a pain. And if anybody reaches out, anybody, it's like it's salvation. And it's a wonderful thing. I mean, but it takes work. It's not easy. People turn you down. And that's what the beauty of a congregation is. That's synergy. That's a synagogue. If we're going to be a shul, that means we're going to be orthodox and we're going to go by the rules. If we're going to be a temple, that means, excuse me for saying it, it's Temple Bethel. It's very ritualistic in its own way. You want to be a synagogue. We've made this into a new member congregation, a congregation that greets everybody, a congregation that is supposed to be mission driven with goodness, love, and depth. And you have to constantly think of that. That is your role. That is who we are. It's not just rabbinically, it's in every way. And if you could do that, then you'll say Kaddish for me wherever I am. Then you bring the idea, the beauty of Shir Shalom to everybody. That's what the beauty is. Okay, Louise.
All right, on a lighter note, that's a pun. I wanted to mention that last night, while I was listening to that beautiful cello music, I could not see the musician. And I wondered if there's something that in the future could remedy that. It was disappointing to just be able to hear and not see.
So Louise commented that she could not see the cellist as she was enjoying the cello music. And that's no one saw the cellist because he actually wasn't here. We faked it. It's all digital. And kidding, I'm joking. Okay. So the reason why is that he needs to be near the pianist. And so they work together. And because they haven't worked close together, the piano's right over there, right? But that's for them to be very in close eyesight with each other and why they wanted it that way. And I defer to them on that sense too. But, so, not to see each other. Eyesights.
They're watching each other.
Right. They haven't worked together. We have a new pianist. Marty's worked with us on and off for the past couple years, but they've never done this together. And so it's very important that they're engaged in that way. So, and Meryl did see him. She attests that he was actually there. So, yes. Yeah, Betsy Appleton is speaking, Rabbi. Oh, we need the microphone to her, though.
Hi, say hi to Betsy.
Going
Is
back
that
to the,
husband of yours? Is that doctor still there? Is he here with you?
Rabbi,
Is Eric
you
here?
only get to answer questions from now on. You can't ask any questions. Go ahead, Betsy.
He was here.
He's online with you.
Ah, good.
He was here. Getting back to the beginning of our conversation about virtual versus in person, I want to ask you how you all decided, and I'm supportive of it, but I want to know how we are building more brick and mortar space when the congregation, some of the congregation is not coming to the physical space for services. And I know that we have different kinds of spaces being included in the new part. But I want to know if the synagogue, are we keeping the synagogue here as this size with the idea that so many people are participating virtually? And if so, what was the thinking, given COVID and the last 2.5 years, of moving forward in that direction? And I'm all for it, but I just don't,
Yeah, it's a great question.
I just
No.
don't understand, given our conversation about numbers.
So the question, Rabbi, is the time to build an addition now in the midst when less people show up in person, and how do we jive that in support of putting on an addition here? And so there's a number of reasons behind it, and looking at this all, with open eyes and being honest about it too. One is, and because we've always been about shared space and how we can make that work and stuff, but there's a benefit that's great to having our own space, and the idea of bringing our preschool home and making all of our educational programs for our children here, because we do spend a fair amount of money in renting every year too. So that's one thing, and especially when things get shut down or we're limited to what we can use, we really lose out on certain opportunities that we've wanted to do that haven't been possible to us. And that's why building outdoor space is important as well, as we all feel more comfortable with that. So that's one thing. Two, we do Friday night bar mitzvahs. It's a Detroit thing. Some synagogues have decided they're not going to do it anymore, and because it's not right, and they want Friday night for their congregation. Well, a lot of our members like Friday night bar mitzvahs, and we're not going to, dig in our heels and say we won't do that. If that's what people want, there's no reason why we would stop that. But there's also a nice segment of our congregation who enjoys that intimate, calm, casual Friday night, 45-minute long service. We can't do both at the same time, right? Because the bar mitzvah family's here early, doing photos on the bima, stuff like that. We have additional sacred space now. We could do 2 services, one at 6:30, one at 7:30. And that's something that we can bring to our community and make that 6:30 service a constant. We have members who get really disappointed when we're having that, through the summer, and then bar mitzvah season starts, so we have to stop it, right? And so that's something we're able to do all the time as well. Additional adult ed space that's more appropriate for adult ed than just sitting in the middle of our social hall. And lastly, the idea of making our social hall a space that people want to be in, rather than just an overflow space or a space that you really have to invest in to make it a beautiful party. But our lobby is a great place to have a small luncheon. The lobby is beautiful. The windows, the ambiance of it, everything works there perfectly. Our social hall is not, right? And so you want to have 150 people, 200 people. It'll be really nice to create something that has elegance and natural light and welcomes people in. So that's the thought process of it. It was not done in just, we have to do it because it's always what we dreamed of. Really in the sense of it's an opportunity for us right now.
To add one other piece to it, part of the idea as well is in that space upstairs will be a studio where we can record things. Green screen, but also a stage or performance area for a variety of things. But one will be for us to be able to create some online opportunities for people to be able to engage in. And whether that is a monthly Musar mantra that's going to be coming out.
Ooh, you sign up for that?
In some way, or just informational or our adult ed classes that we can offer to people that are going to be online. We'll have somewhere other than trying to maneuver things around here as we're doing that, and be able to have more of an online presence as we do that too. And the idea of people not gathering, we know that a lot of our families, one of the other ideas is to be able to have multiple spaces where we can do things. So we might have a family here who's celebrating some sort of simcha, and there's another family that's celebrating one as well, and there's not a separate space that they can go to. So we're not able to host our own congregation in spaces where they can gather and celebrate. And so this additional space will give us opportunities to be able to do that. That you come here for a bris, and you can have your bris in the new chapel, and then there's a space where you can have your festive meal afterwards, while there's a bar bat mitzvah that's going on, and the family moves into the social hall for a party. And the
Betsy, to put a finer point on it, we have always historically been behind the curve, but cutting edge. We've made the most of what we had. When we first began, we started with quote unquote 30 families, and we did it in an office building. We outgrew the office building in 3 weeks, literally. We didn't have enough classrooms, so we had to make do, and we rented office space in the other 2 buildings for our religious school. because we had 130 kids in our religious school and didn't have any room for them. We were bottom heavy. We services for young at the high school because we didn't have enough room. Well, that's the good news. We were supposed to build a building that was supposed to house everything all at once. We didn't have the money. So we were always too small for our quote unquote footprint. Always. Built into this new addition is what we always wanted. And part of that, part of the build-in was that we would have studios in order to produce programming for the internet, for a virtual synagogue. That was always in the plan, always, from the get-go. That's there. All of these rooms, hopefully, are multi-purpose rooms. From what I saw of the plans, that's what they have to be. Debbie Eber, when we first started moved into the present Temple Shir Shalom, as I'm looking at it, those classrooms, she said, would never work. She was a teacher. Absolutely right. They didn't work as classrooms. And, you know, she never once said, I told you so. And I have to give that to her. But she's right. Those are good for adult classes. They're great. They're the best seats in the house as far as services are concerned. But I'm going to tell you, they don't really work as classrooms for young kids. They just don't. And so, back to the drawing boards, we need space. We need a comfort zone. And she was right that our children deserve to have a home, to be in the place where they worship, and especially our nursery school kids. So to say that, you know, why are we building now? Because we're a little crazy and we always built at the wrong time. But that's part of who we are. That's built into the cake that is Shir Shalom. And we should be really, really proud of it.
Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Kahn, and I'm in a mixed marriage. My husband is at Shara Sedek, and I've spent the day at services there, and I really didn't want to be there. But I come from Naples, Florida, and we instituted something at our temple there that I think really made a huge difference in having people feel like they were a part of the community. And every member there has, just like the board members were here, every member has a name tag. And it made a tremendous difference after services to go up to other people, to have their name right there. You don't have that stress of trying to remember. And it just, it was a lovely ritual of going and to the place where they keep the name tags and getting yours and putting it on. It really made it feel like home. It was an important thing, and I hope we will consider doing that here. The other thing I want to say is my kids have always been more into the social side of synagogue, but they went for the first time to Sunday night school the other week and really liked it. And that makes me so happy. I love that we are going to be building a new space. My girls just had their Benot Mitzvah last year. We would have loved to use Temple for the ceremony, the party after, but it just didn't feel good. So I'm so excited that a space is going to be built that's going to have natural light. And thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And hopefully Allison and Melanie heard that idea of name tags too, and we'll discuss that more because I think it's cool. And I think it is good to create ways to make people feel welcome, because a lot of people do come, whether they're single or divorced or not, still end up coming by themselves to services. And it's nice to know you're a part of a community. I mean, that's why we always start services by saying, meet someone you might not know, introduce yourself, and create that. That's one way to do it, but there's a lot of ways we can do that, and it's important to feel. You know, what I love about Temple is that I do believe do a good job of including everyone. And for the most part. Now, if ever that's not the case, let me know. But we can give many examples of children who have succeeded here, who may not have succeeded other places. Adults, and the same thing as well. And that, look, we all don't fit in, but we're all still a part of Shir Shalom. And that's the beauty of it. And I love that. And maybe that's why I'm your rabbi, because I don't know where else I would fit in, so it's okay. Maybe not. Diane?
Diane?
You have the microphone?
Coming around.
It's coming. We got a microphone for you to use, so we all can hear your question. Yeah,
But they're
but
listening
online.
online, too.
Everybody, I have to go for a few minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm hearing people talk about feeling alienated and the need to be more connected. And I'm hearing people going through different transitions, young children, divorced, widowed. Have we thought about doing small groups in the new space, in the old space, some space, where if people who are divorced could get together, feel connected, it's easier to feel connected in a small group to then come into where there's 200 people. And so this is a place where people come when they're in transitions in their life, whether it's marriage, whether it's new baby, whether it's teenage parents, whether it's the teenagers themselves, whether it's children of divorce, whether it's whatever the transition is, could we consider having small groups for them to connect with like issues?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I like that idea. I think that Diane Buffalo shared that, and Diane's going to be helping us leading meditations in a little bit upstairs too. You know, the idea of finding people who are in the same place in life. You know, we've done support groups for those who've experienced loss, right? And done it in conjunction with National Council of Jewish Women, right? With a social worker, a therapist leading that too. The challenge is always building a critical mass. So it's you know, that we have enough who will want to be a part of it. But the idea of creating that opportunity, I think, is beautiful. I love that. And I think that's what a temple should be as well, right? That we should be, one thing that Rabbi and me will always talk about, and with our high school kids especially, and we had a discussion on Sunday night with them about mental health. And the idea that we always want to be a safe place, right? And that should be for anyone of any age. We talk to our preschoolers about that, but we talk to our adults that it should be a safe place where you can be yourself and celebrate your life as a Jew, what it means if it's a difficult time or a good time. But know that there are people who want to be here with you and appreciate that and can support you. And you know, some of the most difficult days for our lives as rabbis are also some of the most rewarding days, because we realize we're serving a community that has real needs and we're helping. And from that often blossom other beautiful things that have occurred as well. And so we could give countless stories of those experiences where we've been drawn into people's lives and then been drawn into Temple's life, who've then made things happen here because of their experiences that have helped our community become stronger and helped other people as well. So John's been waiting really patiently. He had his hand up like a half an hour ago, and
So hi, I'm John Marjumalays. I'm one of the newer members. I've been a member for about a year. And I want to start by saying that when I was out temple shopping, I went to 6, 7, 8 different temples in this area and chose this one, largely because this place is based on and is explicit about being based on relationships. And I just wanted to say, as somebody who's new to this community, that's really, really important. It's what caused me to choose to be here in the first place. I think one of the central questions about all of these things, all of these affinity groups, Chavarim, all of these, is whether, and online as well, is whether it draws people towards a feeling community or away from a feeling of community. So if we improve the online so much that people don't want to come anymore, that draws away from community. So I think one of the ways to frame this discussion is, what are the things that cause us to move towards community? Are they having name tags? I love that idea. It's one of the things that some congregations do. Is it having a set of reunions for people whose kids were bar mitzvahed 10 years ago? I mean, maybe we can look that up. Is it saying to people explicitly, hey, this Friday night, if you're coming alone, let us know so we can have a group of you. By the way, last thing is to recommend a tweak. So at the beginning of the service, we're often asked to introduce yourself to the people next to you and then the service starts and you can't talk to those people. What if instead, at the end of the service, you said, hey, introduce yourself to the person next to you and talk to them? Just a thought.
Add that in too. Thank you for the affirmation of what drew you to Temple and the connections that we feel as well. We're glad you're a part of our community, and it means a lot, and that's worked. You can, as we talk more, you can ask questions about anything too, in the sense of what Tish is. And I do have a question from someone online that I want to get to as well, a question about mourning and stuff, in the rites and the rituals around mourning that I'll make sure I address too. But this topic as well, Flo, you were.
When actually Jerry Zaks of blessed memory started a minion group right here outside, which I was part of as well. And Alyssa Coltano, who is home today ill, wanted to say, I just talked to her on the phone before.
She's online with us too.
Yeah. Every Sunday, we meet online. Mm-hmm. And Alyssa and David Hershen plays guitar. And we have somebody, Steve, who just he's there.
He's here.
He gets us online. He shows the book, and we all read it. Everybody can say what they want. It's been phenomenal, especially for the few of us, not me this time, but a few that have lost a spouse, that they know they can come there and feel comfortable. And it is such a family. Alyssa mentioned to me, you were talking about different groups and families, and I am part of the choir too, and that is a family. But this minion group is a real family. You can ask anybody. It's so phenomenal, and yet we don't hear anybody talking about asking people to come. But I'll say it now, if anybody wants to come, and I know you mentioned it, if you want people to come on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, usually we start 15 minutes early, people chit-chat amongst themselves, and then we do a service. It's a phenomenal service with live music.
What's nice is that it's totally lay-led too.
Exactly.
Because we're teaching, we're at Shoresh, but it exists, without us. We started it initially 10 years ago, whatever, and it's taken off. And it's also become a resource for someone who's had a death in the family who wants to be able to say Kaddish. Because we don't have a daily minyan. I know Rabbi Schwartz tried to, in this building before it was a building, when Wally Sampson passed away. And Wally was, the third president at the time of Temple. And Wally died during the construction of Temple Shir Shalom, and was really Rabbi Schwartz's partner in that. And so they met here on the building site during construction to gather, and it lasted a few days, but then it petered out. And so that's been the history of us trying to do daily minions in person. The online one, took off. It was happening in person before, meeting here at Temple on Sunday mornings. When we were at Hillel for Sunday school, we were at the corners, and it worked. And then with the pandemic, it moved to online and has existed there. So if it moves to more days, that's cool too. So.
Natalie?
We'll use the microphone close.
Yeah, that's good. I have a soft voice. Hi, everyone. This is kind of on the vein of how do we bring people back? I'll say, as a younger person here, during my time at college, I met a lot of people who, I said, I was Jewish, and they're like, oh, I'm Jewish too. And I said, you should totally come to Hillel with me or some kind of event. They were very hesitant to, no, I don't want to do that. I've also met people who come from kind of interfaith marriages, looking to get back to Judaism, but aren't really sure how. So what I get from these people is a lot of kind of fear of, will I be accepted back to my community that I've been away from so long, that I've been away from since my parents left, How do we embrace these people back? How do we give them kind of this low stakes opportunity to come into Temple and, reconnect with Judaism and reconnect with the people? All the prayers, and that's a lot to learn, but reconnecting with people is a lot easier to do. So maybe we can find some events that can encourage that for the people that we have in the community who want to return.
I think a piece of it too is not expecting them to come to us, but for us to go to them. And it's being aware of it as we're doing that a number of years ago, we actually did a Shabbat dinner for young adults downtown. Is Rob Lippitt still here?
Yeah, Rob's here.
Rob's here. In Rob's office. He had a beautiful view of the city, and we had a sushi chef that came in, and there was just a fun evening, and we got a grant to be able to do that. But it wasn't here at Temple, so it was a low bar for people that aren't comfortable in a synagogue setting. When I was in Columbus, Ohio, working there, one of the things that we used to do is we went into Home Depot. And on Saturday mornings, I can't do it these days, but on Saturday mornings, they have these really nice workshops where kids get these orange aprons, just like the Home Depot workers, staff there, and they get to build something. And one of the synagogues in the community was going in and doing that on Saturday mornings once every few months, and they would have like some sort of Jewish project that they would do. But that was their way of engaging the community that was out there that might not be comfortable walking into a synagogue, but as an introduction. And I think it's those types of opportunities that we're going to be looking for as well, and would love to have your help on, Natalie, to be able to get started again.
We did, we can bring the microphone to Sid as I tell a quick story. I did a wedding from that dinner a month ago, and I didn't realize that I met the groom for the first time at that dinner on the elevator down, leaving the dinner. He goes, "Do you remember, Rabbi, you gave me a bottle of vodka?" I'm like, "Whoa." There was leftover. And I said, "Here, enjoy." And that was his memory of me. And he realized, oh, he'd be good for a wedding.
He saw him afterwards as he bailed him out for giving him an open bottle, but
it was not open. It's okay. Yes, Sid.
Yeah, I had a question. Two words that are used frequently for the holiday, the Day of Atonement and the holiday of forgiveness. I'm not quite sure. Can you help me to understand what the difference is?
So Sid's heard today is a day of forgiveness, but also is the Day of Atonement. There's I'd say the difference between the two is atoning is asking, realizing what you've done wrong, and asking for forgiveness. Forgiveness means that you're going to grant it. I would say Yom Kippur isn't always about that. Yom Kippur is about asking God for the forgiveness for the transgressions that we committed against God, religious obligations. And the idea is that we petition, our hope is that God forgives us, so that we start the new year with a clean slate and we make it into the book of life. Day of forgiveness in terms of people, it not always is granted. Our tradition says that you're supposed to ask somebody that you've wronged for forgiveness up to 3 times, that they have a choice of whether or not they grant it to you. After the 3rd time, as long as you've done it sincerely and asked for forgiveness, they can still say, "No, I'm not going to forgive you," but it's now on them. You don't have to ask for forgiveness anymore. That it was the idea that you were trying to make up for it, recognizing the wrong that you had committed, and to make it right. To me, that's the difference.
Great. A question came to me from someone watching online, and I wanted to address that as well, which, since we're going to different things, which was about wearing the Kriya ribbon, the black ribbon that someone wears when they're a mourner. And this is someone who's a mourner right now, and so Jeff Alickman asked the question of why we're wearing that, and he knows it's Jewish tradition. So it's called Kriya, which means torn or tearing, and traditionally we would tear our actual clothes, right? When you, either the moment you learned of a family member's death or the time right before the funeral began. And it's only to be worn by a mourner, and a mourner is a husband or wife, a son or daughter, a brother or sister, or a mother or father. One of those relationships, then you wear the ribbon. And the idea is we show on the outside how we feel on the inside. That we show our heart is torn and that we've had this loss, so that people see that and treat us differently, a little more gingerly, more tenderly, and appreciate that we're someone who's experienced loss. Jewish law says that we wear that for 7 days for the period of Shiva. Some choose to wear it for 30 days, but that's a custom. But law is only 7 days that we would wear the mourner's ribbon. And we became practical. We didn't want to ruin our clothes, because you'd wear that same shirt for the week or the tie, whatever it is. It was a practical thing that we now give you that ribbon that we wear. And you actually tear it and you say a prayer, "Blessed are you, God, who judges in truth." And the idea is, one, you tear it yourself. You do that action of tearing, showing how you feel that pain. And number 2, that blessing is that we don't always understand life and death. In the midst of loss, we sort of trust that we still have our family with us in some way. Their memory is a part of who we are now.
I like the
All
symbolism
morning
behind that
traditions
one
come
as
from
well.
the book of Job. Hello, 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 hello.
After you talk about Job in a second, the symbolism of tearing as well, there's a beauty within it. Because the idea for us, I think, is different as Jews than other faiths at time, where we never say, you'll get over this, or you're going to heal from this, and that things will be back to normal. The idea of that tearing of the ribbon is supposed to represent the tearing of our heart that we feel when we lose somebody. And same as if we were to take that ribbon or our blouse or shirt or whatever it might be, we might try and sew it up over time, but there's still a scar. You still have that memory of that loved one, and it's supposed to, the memory of that person is always supposed to be with us. We go back to living our lives, hopefully over the course of time, but we still carry them with us, and we don't forget them, and we don't say that we are completely healed, because we never will be. And I've always liked that. It comes from, Rabbi's going to tell us from the book of Job and some of the mourning practices.
And if it, again, all of our mourning customs come from the book of Job, and Job was not Jewish. And these are the minimal standards of mourning. Anything additional, comes from later Jewish law, but things like renting your clothes. If you ever go to an Orthodox person's house, you'll see that they rip their shirt, or they'll rip their suit, so it can never be worn again. That's the concept. I mean, we've gone from ripping suits to ripping the tie, so the tie couldn't be worn again, to ripping a button. I mean, we've gone all the way down to just, I'm surprised we're even ripping a little piece of cloth anymore. But that is what the tradition says. It's supposed to say that you can't wear it again. You can't bring anything back. But again, it's the minimal. It's like it says in the Torah, honor thy father and thy mother. It doesn't say love. And the question is asked, how do you honor? What is honor? What is the least you could do to honor? Rabbi Moskowitz, what's the least you could do to honor?
Say Kaddish.
Sid?
Yeah, I mean, that's the tradition of saying Kaddish even for 11 versus 12 months. We say Kaddish for a loved one for a year. And the concept is that us saying Kaddish for them helps get their soul to Olam Haba, to the world to come, right? That we help their soul if we do it. Now, some people might need only a day of you saying Kaddish. They don't need a whole year, right? A good person, they don't even need us to say it. It's going to happen anyway. But we make sure of it, right? But no one should really need 12 months. So that's why we do Kaddish traditionally for 11 months for a loved one, for a parent. But if that parent isn't a good person, then you do it for 12 months. That's how you sort of still fulfill the law, but you show something while you do it.
A few other online comments and questions. One, Mel Seidman mentioned as we were talking about different Chavarah groups and things, he said, our Tish group on Shabbat morning is also a nice, wonderful group. We'll oftentimes call it one of the hidden secrets of Temple, but it's a nice group that's formed that community over time as well. Lots of affirmation of small groups. I thought I saw some questions.
Everybody, you're going to have to excuse me. It has reached 2 p.m. and I am the cook of our family, and therefore I have to prepare for breakfast up here in Maine. My wife is the dish wench. She cleans up after me. So
I think it's the first time that the word wench has been used from the Bima on Yom Kippur. Thank you, Rabbi, for bringing us to a new level.
I know it's not PC anymore, but then again, fire me.
Okay. Thank you for being a part of our Tish, Rabbi, and Gamar Tov.
Everybody, Gamar Tov, finish well, and I miss you terribly. I really do. You take care.
Thanks.
You will.
We'll stay together for another 15 minutes, and then we'll break in time for meditation. Yeah.
I have a question about Torah as literature. I was reading in the book last night about commentary about Genesis. There are two parts of Genesis. There's a beginning and the end, and it talked about having those two parts redacted together. Can you comment on the role of redactors in the formation of the Torah?
Yeah. So about Torah as literature, well, it depends when I'm talking about Torah and how I explain things, right? So during a sermon and stuff, but you have liberal rabbis here who believe that Torah is a human creation. It's not it's not the divine word of God infallibly transmitted through generations, right? So now I believe that God is in Torah and in that creation, and so we can find that divine word, but humans did the creating and the editing. And so it happened over different periods of time. So you're specifically referencing Genesis. The oldest book of the Torah is Deuteronomy, the first one that was actually written down and that we know historically was being read by itself. And Deuteronomy means second telling, so it's telling all the other stories in a sense. Genesis has the oldest stories of the Torah, but it wasn't written down till much later. And so because of that, how it gets redacted, we see, and edited, we see different things happening, right? And sometimes in the redaction of Torah, we find how laws are transmitted and what laws are included. Because we find other things in Dead Sea Scrolls, things that exist in the Dead Sea Scrolls that didn't make it into our Torah, in Deuteronomy or in the prophets and things like that too. So we can see what was the concerns of the community and why laws are featured in Torah at different times. In Genesis, there are a number of examples where you have different stories that don't necessarily go together. And the Orthodox spend chapters trying to explain that and make sense of it. So the first is our very first story of creation. The first story of creation, we open up the Torah and Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth's without form and void, blah, 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 right? We get 6 days of creation, the seventh day of Shabbat. That's the first chapter plus of the Torah. Then the next story is about Adam and Eve. It's a totally different creation story that God made, because in the sixth day of creation, God made humanity, B'Tselem Elohim. In a rabbi's sermon this morning, in my sermon last night, we both used that idea, that we're created in the image of God. God made male and female, B'Tselem Elohim. Now we have another story. It's as if humanity wasn't created yet. And God takes the earth, the clay from the earth, and breathes into it, and we get Adam, right? And then later in the story, Adam's lonely, and God puts Adam to sleep and takes his rib and makes Eve. And we get Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and everything's hunky-dory. And then they, eat from the tree they shouldn't eat from, and they realize they're naked. I don't know why that was a bad thing, but nonetheless, And so then they get expelled from the Garden of Eden. And so it's a whole different theme of what the story is. Probably we came from different peoples, right? Some would say you could look at the people of Adonai, who prayed to God, who was Adonai, and some would say Elohim, they prayed to God Elohim. And at some point we were brought together and we had our different creation stories, and they're redacted into one book of Genesis. The Orthodox will say that the story of Adam and Eve is when we take a microscope onto the sixth day of creation and then draw out that story of Adam and Eve. And it is the same story, it's in there, but now they come back to it later on. So I think that's a justification, though I'll teach that too. But I think we have two different things. Some say that it's the time of King David 3,000 years ago when we were unified. So historically, if we look back in time, King David's the one who unifies the people of Israel. In the south, Jerusalem was the capital, and it was the two tribes of Judah and Benjamin. In the north, we have 10 tribes, right, the other 10 tribes, and they worship up in the north. And, the people of Israel were asking for a king, and the first king, Saul, comes and he fails because they're being, challenged by the Philistines and other outside forces. And it's sort of like, the Confederacy, the idea of 13 colonies, and they want to come together as one union and will be stronger. And so they say we should have a king. And so Saul, the first king, can't succeed because God is the king. Second king then becomes David, and he has success. He unifies the people, but he does it by force as well. He closes down the altar in the north, where they worship a different god named Elohim. In the south, King David says we worship Adonai. He kills off the Aaronite priests. Says, by the way, you want to talk about spectacular, it's not really a nice way to unify people, but he does it anyway. We're all going to worship in Jerusalem. And so he unifies our people together in that way. Adonai is Elohim, Elohim is Adonai, same God, one God, all together. Woo! Then they do the dance from High School Musical. We're all in this together. Everyone's happy, okay? And so that's why we have different stories. Some say we were 12 different peoples over time, and we have different pieces from each of the tribes that were then unified and brought into that story too. So that's my belief historically and anthropologically how Genesis came to be. You want to add to that?
Good answer. The only other thing to add is that with biblical criticism, there's the idea that there are 4 different authors that we see in there. So Rabbi mentioned the 2 different gods that are referred to, or same God that we say today, but where in one community, God was Adonai, in another community, it was El or Elohim. And so we see a lot of the different texts that are referring to God by one of those names, that it's assumed that it came from 2 different communities, depending on which name of God you used. The next part of the canon that was included in there was the priestly material. So the book of Leviticus is probably the latest insertion. The priests wanted to make sure that everybody saw them as part of this continual of tradition. And so you don't put it at the end when you want to be a part of things. You put it smack dab in the middle so that it's not like it was added at a later point. So all the priestly material, the sacrifices in the temple that were going on, the priests, that's probably another piece that was added in. And then the Deuteronomical author, which is the second telling, these stories that were already there or that were included as part of it too. So they look at it and say that there are probably 4 different pieces that a redactor came and started to put them together to craft what our Torah is today.
Yeah. At that time, it came together. It was all oral initially too, right? And part of the challenge, once it gets written, right, then it gets, the same thing is true with Talmud, right? Talmud was all oral as well, and it kept evolving. But, after the 2nd century, when the war with Rome and so many of our people have been killed, so many of our rabbis have been killed, the fear was we won't have the oral transition to put down. We better write it down. And then it gets locked in, as opposed to a constant evolution of things. So, Bruce.
Question for you. Why is Rosh Hashanah...
Bruce to Bruce, that's right. Sorry.
Why isn't Rosh Hashanah observed at the beginning of the Hebrew calendar?
Why is it on the 1st of Tishrei, not the 1st of Nisan? Because then the Passover would be right there and be a mess having our holidays together.
2 holidays together? That'd be rough.
Rough. Wait,
so as Bruce is referring to...
4 holidays right now.
We have 4 New Years during our year. Rosh Hashanah being one of them, which happens on the first day of the 7th month, which is Tishrei. So the first of the year, where we count back to the story of creation, how many years have happened since Adam and Eve on that 6th day of creation, and now being in the year 5783, doesn't happen on the first month of our calendar. Nisan is the first month of the calendar, and the first of Nisan is the year, I believe, or the month that we count the reign of our kings, and that if a king was anointed, it doesn't matter when they were anointed during the year, but every time we get to the first of Nisan, we add another year to their cap. So if it was that they were being ordained sometime today in the fall and only served for 6 months as the king, first of Nisan, they would then be in their first year and now going into their 2nd year. Another new year that we have is our New Year of the Trees, Tu B'Shvat, the 15th day of the month of Shvat, and the last one is the first day of the month of Elul, which is where we count the age of our cattle and how old they are as we're going through. So why wasn't it selected as the head of the month? We're told that actually we're not given Rosh Hashanah in the Torah as the counting of our new year. What we're told is this is supposed to be a day that's called Yom Teruah. It's supposed to be a day where we hear the shofar blast. And so after that, we continued to interpolate, extrapolate, and that's when it became Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year as well, as we started counting time. So Torah doesn't say count it as the beginning of the year. it's later that we add that to it.
Excellent.
Okay. It's a sort of a loaded question, so just answer what you can in 5 minutes. So I was having an argument with a friend and colleague. First, is it not allowed for somebody who dies by suicide to be buried in a Jewish cemetery? And is there a law, we were talking about, is there something in Judaism that says if you die by suicide, you are like altering your body, and that's why you can't be in a Jewish cemetery? Because a lot of the new research with suicide is, we say die by suicide because it's usually a symptom of a larger disease, and that usually people that die that way aren't actually in control of anything, so it's not like they committed the action willingly. So just want to know your thoughts and what's Reformed Judaism's
And that's why you're allowed to be buried in a Jewish cemetery.
Okay. Yeah.
It's for that reason. The idea is that somebody who dies by suicide, that they are not in control of if they had the ability to be able to choose what the right decision would be, and were in the right mental capacity to be able to do that, they wouldn't choose to take their own life. And because of that, Judaism pretty much across the board now recognizes that and will allow somebody to be buried inside the Jewish cemetery, not on the periphery, on the side of the fence, or across the road, or in a different section, but amongst other loved ones as well.
I don't know any cemeteries today that will prohibit that. And in the, I don't know, 13th century, 14th century, there was, a time when they said you couldn't be buried in a cemetery if you died by suicide, and the reason being was there was copycats. It was like the movie Heathers, remember that? And so that they were afraid people would copy that, and they didn't want to honor anyone with a ritual who had died by suicide for the fear that people would copy it. Sort of different explanation to that as well. But today, and for my entire career as a rabbi, it's never been a problem. God forbid we're ever there. So.
Ken Brashad asked online, how many names have we given God, and when did we start using each name?
How many names have we given God?
The mystics have 70. But a lot of these names it depends. So we can look in the Torah, and it's not just Elohim and Adonai. We see Tsur. Part of it is, Tsur means rock, and so the idea of giving strength. We used in our words today, Avinu Malkeinu, our parent, our king, literally our father, our king. And so there are all sorts of different euphemisms that are used for the name of God. And so some of it has to deal with the capacity in which we are referring to God, or what the role of God is at that time. I don't think we can date most of those names unless it is something that Sadia Gaon, as we're looking at our prayer book and our liturgy, that he would have introduced about 1,000 years ago into the liturgy. But other than that, these are just names that have been present and have been used, described in Torah, described in letters, and used by our community.
I'm with you.
That's a great question to end on then.
Yeah.
Unless somebody has one more.
Excellent.
Last chance to get it in. The gates are closing.
It's amazing. We've been sitting here for 2 hours enjoying our time together. So in a moment, we'll start our meditation services upstairs in the library chapel. Here, we'll begin our Pitzela services in 45 minutes or 40 minutes together. And then that will end, and then at 4 o'clock we start our afternoon services as well. Always good to be together and appreciate. Oh, we have one more question?
Got one more.
Just one comment. Sitting in the back last night, the TV screens you didn't show the service on the screens.
Did they forget to turn them on?
Huh?
Did they forget to turn the TV screens on?
They were not.
That's news to us. I didn't know that.
They were not on. Just a comment. Technical.
At least the internet worked. Good to know. I'm not sure why that would have been. I know that I saw them turning off screens, I thought, at different times, and I think they were working today. That we wanted you to move closer, I guess.
Don't know. Sorry about that. That's right. Right, bringing us all together. Well, thank you, everyone. Gemar Tov, we continue for the next few hours as well. So see you here.